Is it me? Yes, thank you for inviting me, and I think this is a great panel actually, and a really important subject. So you were right when you said that, I'm a working class academic, but what do I do? Well, I'm a sociologist, and for 20 years, I've been doing research, ethnographic research, which is bottom up, working with people, and particularly always with working class people. The first piece of research I did, which was for my PhD, was on the council estate where I used to live. And this is important to the wider issue, because what was I doing? I was interviewing and working with women who lived on the estate, mothers mostly, and just talking to them about their lives and what was happening. And I'd done an undergraduate degree in sociology and social policy. So, the idea that, the state and policy, it sort of interacts with people's lives. That, I knew that from personal experience, but also from the education that I'd got. So talking to mothers on the estate, what they often told me was the way that their lives were completely interactive with state intervention, with benefits, with welfare, and particularly how the welfare system was actually a system, and a system that didn't really work for them. And I'll give you an example of this before I sort of go on to the other areas. One of the things that we talk a lot about, especially in working class communities, when other people are talking about working class communities, they talk about family life, and whether, that usually working class families have got the deficit model, usually doing something wrong, or they're accused of doing something wrong. Well, one of the things that the mothers told me about the benefit system, it was a council estate, so everybody lived in social housing. Most of the mothers worked part-time. But one of the things that they said is, in order to survive, to get a house that they could afford to live in, they had to say that they were a single parent. And it didn't matter whether they were or not, they had to say that. And the system wouldn't allow them to kind of live or be as a family, because if your husband or your partner was also in a very low paid job, you'd kind of be penalized for that. So what families were doing is just trying to make the best of things. And I remember the last question I also always asked women was, what is your hope for the future? Because when you talk to mothers on council estates, there's lots of problems and lots of things that are going wrong. So I always say, what's your hope for the future? And many of those women and those mothers said that they hoped that they'd get a full-time job and their partner would get a full-time job and they could live together as a proper family. So the ambition was not to be part of a welfare dependency culture. That was never what it was about. But unfortunately, the structure of the system, which is almost like a race to the bottom, meant that they were left with little choices but to sort of play into a stereotype about them, and then allowed that stereotype to constantly be told around them. So when we're talking about welfare, what are we talking about? We're talking about housing, we're talking about pensions, we're talking about unemployment benefit as well as disability benefits. It's not one thing, it's a number of things, and they do all interrelate. At the moment, we've got a housing crisis that is affecting welfare. It's absolutely affecting welfare. And again, I can give examples of this. I'm writing a new book about what's happening in class in Britain. I'm talking to lots of men. I'm talking to lots of young men with jobs. These are not unemployed people who are now finding themselves in HMOs, houses of multiple occupation. Why? Because of what a one-bedroom flat is out of their reach. And so what I'm also talking to is other men and women who are working and are underemployed. They can't find enough employment. So what is happening is they are looking to find other ways to try and top up their wages. Or if they're on benefits, the housing benefit is not covering It covers social rent, but getting a social housing is absolutely impossible now. So private rent, it doesn't even nearly cover it. So what they are having to do is find other ways to try and pay that. And sometimes that means looking for getting a higher welfare benefit, and that might be disability benefits. What I suppose I'm going to finish with, because I want us to have the debate here, is employment is also, and it's also sort of tangled in this as well. Good employment that pays people a decent wage so they can, so they can stand on their own 2 feet, so they can find somewhere to live. There are incredible rates of underemployment at the moment, especially for young people, not being able to find jobs that will, a 30, 40-hour job. They can't find it. There's 15-hour jobs here, 10-hour jobs there. That's not proper work. So I mean, this is what I'm sort of looking at figures at the moment, and I'm really thinking about this and thinking about the people I'm interviewing. We have 1.7 million people unemployed. That's 4.8 of the population, and that's rising. I guess that we have got an extremely high unemployment rate, but it is being hidden in the welfare system. The Thatcher government started this when they tried to hide the unemployment rates in the 1980s, and they moved lots of people onto disability benefits. I imagine that's where we are again. I've got a yellow card. So I think, while we're talking about welfare, I think we need to really be honest about what is happening in our economy.
Okay, thank you.